At the primary school that I attended, every Monday was assembly day. The entire school would assemble in the main hall, and the teacher on duty that week would give their report of what transpired. This one time, the teacher on duty decided to conclude their report with a quote from Nelson Mandela that went, "The children of today are the leaders of tomorrow, and their education is a powerful weapon to prepare children for their future roles as leaders of the community." It was one of the best assemblies we had ever had because those words of sorts amongst us kids. And soon the most popular became, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" While I did enjoy running around asking all the other kids what it is they wanted, I didn't quite understand what the question meant, let alone know how to answer it myself. So when I got home, I decided to ask my mother to help me figure out what it is that I could be. And she told me that I could be anything I wanted. I thought to myself, wow, I think I'm going to be a Spice Girl. The next day, of occupations on the blackboard, and we were tasked to pick one. Everyone in class, right there and then, had to choose what it is they were going to be when they grew up. I was only 7 years old, and there I was, deciding my future. And although I couldn't see Spice Girls on the list, I decided to give it a go anyway. So the first was plumbers are boys. So the second one I picked was told me I had to pick again because pilots are also boys. The third one I picked was doctor, and quickly who picked president. The teacher burst out in excitement and demanded that we gave him a round of applause because boys make the best presidents. That's the day I realized that I couldn't actually be anything I wanted. I felt incredibly let down. As I grew, I learned new things about my society, like girls are expected to learn how to cook and clean from as early as 9 years old. And every time I asked why my brother got to play all day while I toiled away doing house chores, the answer was always the same. Well, he's a boy and you're a girl. Just imagine for a second what effects that kind of conditioning can have on a child. In 2019, the MasterCard Index of Women Entrepreneurs ranked my country, Uganda, as the leading economy in the world with the highest concentration of women business owners. That is, 4 in every 10 business owners in Uganda are women. Isn't that amazing? And United States ranked 4th, while Germany ranked 26th. That was the benchmark indicator of this index, however. In the overall index of best markets with the most conducive entrepreneurial conditions for women, United States ranked 1st, while my country, Uganda, ranked 42nd. And this is due to a number of reasons, such as low women financial inclusion, disparities in access to internet and technology, generally lower prospects for tertiary education, which lowers women's likelihood to rise in the workplace, restrictive cultural and social norms that impede women from accessing financial services, sheer lack of confidence, to mention but a few. While we do have a lot of hardworking and ambitious African women starting businesses every day, many of these businesses seldom survive long enough to provide sustainable livelihoods for them. And there's many more reasons why that is, chief among which, in many cases, is the cultural conditioning that we're exposed to throughout our lives. I know this all too well because when I grew up, true to the choice I made on that blackboard 25 years ago, I did finally go to medical school. And I'm currently growing a health tech startup as a woman in Africa. My team and I are trying to improve African lives by making healthcare more interactive and accessible. But I am faced with the same challenges every day. For example, many of my friends and relatives don't quite understand what it is that I do. And those that do, half of them have expressed to me many times that I should leave the tech stuff to my brothers and focus more taking care of my husband. And the assumption, of course, is that I couldn't quite possibly be able to do both. I think I do a great job, if I do say so myself, and as my husband will have you know, but that's a conversation for another time. I will concede that majority of Africa's big enterprises that stand out today are male-founded. And although we are seeing more efforts being made towards inclusion and financial opportunities for women, there are still many disparities between male and female-led startups in Africa. According to World Bank Africa, from the year 2013 and 2021, 76% of early-stage funding in the continent went to male founders, while a disproportionate 3% went to female founders. And that was credited to the fact that there's just not that many women interested in fields such as fintech, which just so happens to be trending right now amongst VCs in Africa. I would argue that perhaps the young women that could have been interested in these fields to begin with were told at a very young age that they did not belong there. Africa is blessed to have so many women leading brilliant solutions to big problems. But with the gap in inclusion still very prevalent and gender bias so woven into our cultural fabric, it begs the question, are we doing everything we can to give all our children every possible chance to be anything they want to be when they grow up? Or are we letting them down? On March 11th, 2020, when the World Health Organization declared the novel coronavirus outbreak a global pandemic, my country, Uganda, acted fast and declared a 3-month total school shutdown to prevent the spread of the virus. 21 months later, however, the results have been astonishing. That's almost 2 years of no school, where online learning options were only available for the elite few. And during this time, the United Nations Population Fund reports that over 500,000 teenage pregnancies were recorded. 500,000. Many of these girls were left unsupervised, mistreated, raped, while others were married off early to help ease the financial constraints of their families. And unfortunately, many of these girls might never return to school. That's thousands of girls that could have grown up to be doctors, teachers, engineers, architects, artists, scientists. Thousands of lost opportunities to fuel our workforce with more skilled talent. Thousands of young girls that held on to the words of Nelson Mandela and believed that they too were the leaders of tomorrow and that their education mattered. Have we not let them down? So, I think it is safe to say that before we tackle gender bias in the workplace, one must take a closer look at how we are conditioning our children and setting up safe communities for them to grow up and flourish in. I am aware that we cannot solve all of Africa's problems overnight, especially with the debilitating effects of COVID-19. But perhaps a more holistic approach that focuses on resolving conflicts on a community level could be a good first step. I believe that empowering communities by emphasizing not only gender equality, but also gender unity could be a viable path to economic empowerment. And I came up with a three-step theory on how we can help ourselves as Africans get there. Number one, balance. Based on reports that I cited earlier, it is evident that there is an imbalance in outcome based on gender. And so focusing on balancing the talent pipeline is crucial. This could mean reculturing our education system to avoid toxic conditioning of our children that leads them to place unconscious biases on one another. Number two, unite. Understanding that we're all better off and stronger together than we are apart. Starting any business venture, especially after COVID-19, is hard. But if we leverage the power of community, we will realize that we're not alone and that the success of any member of the community is a success for all. Gender biases, like all biases, social, racial, religious, and otherwise, need to be broken now more than ever. We need all of our hands working together towards one common goal now more than ever. And three, uplift. Remodeling our narrative and letting go of limiting beliefs. All social biases are limiting beliefs. So why limit ourselves when we can all thrive? Let us have compassion for one another. Let us be kind, love, and protect one another. Let us encourage our boys and sons to cry when they need to, and our daughters to speak up when they need to. And for those that are fortunate to experience success, let us give back to our communities and share our journeys. Let us embrace transparency so that those in dire circumstances can begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel. For Africa, and for all of us, COVID-19 could be a chance to reset and write a new story. Believing that we have the power to write our own story is key in achieving economic empowerment. Oh, and what a beautiful story it would be if we began it by holding ourselves accountable when we tell our children that they can be anything they want to be when they grow up. That would challenge us as adults to live by example, because we know they're watching. And so since they're watching us and holding on to our every word, let them watch as we uplift and empower each other into a new world free of bias and better economies because of it. Thank you.